Crossing paths, Farid adjusted his tie for the third time, scanning the crowded reception hall. Weddings always made him uncomfortable, not because he disliked celebrations, but because they inevitably led to questions about his own perpetually single status. At 34, he had built a respectable architectural firm, but had somehow misplaced the blueprint for his personal life along the way. "You look like you're plotting an escape route," came a voice from behind him, melodic and faintly familiar. He turned to find a woman in a sage green sari, her hair falling in loose waves around shoulders that carried themselves with quiet confidence. Recognition dawned slowly, then all at once. Nisha Bajwa. Her smile confirmed it. "The very same. Though I haven't been called that in ages. It's Professor Bajwa to my students." The girl next door from his childhood stood transformed, the awkward teenager who had tutored him in mathematics, now a woman with eyes that still calculated everything, but with a warmth he hadn't forgotten. "Professor of what?" he asked, accepting the champagne flute she offered. "Astrophysics. I map stars. Now instead of equations." She gestured toward the bride. "How do you know Priya?" "College roommate. You?" "Doctoral program colleagues. Small world." They migrated to a table away from the dance floor, 15 years of absence dissolving into hours of conversation. Farid learned that Nisha had pursued her education relentlessly, traveling between observatories in Chile, Hawaii, and Japan before settling at a university in Mumbai. She had mapped constellations, published papers, and collected accolades, but never, it seemed, paused long enough to share her life with someone. "And you?" she asked. "Still drawing buildings that touch the sky?" "When clients let me. Most want pragmatic boxes, not poetry in steel and glass." As evening deepened, they shared stories of their neighborhood, the mango tree they'd climbed as children, the stray dog they'd secretly fed, the elderly shopkeeper who gave them extra candy. They remembered things differently sometimes, arguing playfully about details, but the essence remained intact. They had once been central characters in each other's stories before life rewrote their narratives separately. "Do you remember when you tried to teach me about lunar eclipses?" Farid asked. "You made me stay up until 2 in the morning, Nisha laughed. "And you fell asleep halfway through, some appreciation for celestial phenomena." "I appreciated something," he said quietly, their eyes meeting. When the wedding ended, they exchanged numbers with the casual promise of keeping in touch that usually fades with distance. But as Farid watched her walk toward the hotel elevator, something shifted in his carefully ordered world. 3 days later, he called her. A week after that, they met for coffee. The following month, he found a reason to visit Mumbai for a potential project, and she gave him a tour of her university observatory. Under the vast dome with its powerful telescope, Nisha explained how certain stars orbit each other for billions of years without ever touching. Binary systems, she called them. Eternally connected but separate. Farid watched her face as she spoke, illuminated by starlight, and wondered if some orbits could be changed. If bodies set in motion along separate paths could somehow alter their trajectories and find each other across the void of time and space. "Some things," she told him that night, "take light years to reach us, but they were always there, shining." Unspoken promises. The distance between Delhi and Mumbai, 1,400 kilometers exactly, became both obstacle and opportunity for Farid and Nisha. Their reconnection unfolded through late-night phone calls, weekend visits, and the occasional holiday stolen away together. 6 months of this strange orbit had passed, neither quite willing to name what was happening between them. "Tell me about the stars again," Farid would request during their calls, not because he particularly cared about celestial bodies, but because he loved how her voice changed when she spoke of them. Passionate, reverent, alive. "You're just trying to make me talk so you don't have to," Nisha would tease, but then launch into explanations about neutron stars or nebulae anyway, while he closed his eyes and imagined her beside him. Their friends noticed the change in them. Both. Farid's business partner Vikram commented on his sudden interest in weekend trips to Mumbai. "Must be quite the project you're working on there," he said with knowing eyes. Meanwhile, Nisha's colleague Divya remarked how she now checked her phone between lectures. something the formerly single-minded professor had never done. During one of Farid's visits, they wandered through Mumbai's bustling streets, finding their way to Marine Drive as evening approached. The curve of the bay with its necklace of lights stretched before them, the Arabian Sea breathing steadily against the shore. "I've been offered a visiting position," Nisha said suddenly. "At Delhi University. 6 months." Farid's heart accelerated. "When would you start?" "Next semester, but I'm not sure if I should accept." "Why wouldn't you?" She looked at him sideways, her expression guarded. "Because I'm not sure what this is, Farid. What we're doing. I've built my life around certainties, observable phenomena, proven theories. But this," she gestured between them, "this defies my equations." The confession hung between them, heavy with possibility. Farid took her hand, calloused from years of holding telescopes and marking papers, different from the soft hands of women he'd dated before. "Maybe that's the point," he said. "Some things aren't meant to be calculated." She accepted the position. Their relationship intensified during those 6 months of proximity. Mornings together before work, weeknight dinners, weekend explorations of Delhi's hidden corners. Farid introduced her to his parents, who immediately adored her analytical mind and straightforward manner. Nisha took him to meet her father, a widower who sized him up with suspicious eyes before grudgingly offering him homemade chai. As the visiting position neared its end, anxiety settled over them. Neither mentioned what would happen next, afraid to push too hard or expect too much. On her second-to-last weekend in Delhi, Farid took her to the rooftop of a building he had designed, his first truly inspired project, a residential tower that embraced both function and beauty. "This is where I come when I need to think," he told her as they looked out over the city, lights blinking like earthbound stars. "And what are you thinking now?" she asked. Instead of answering, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. No dramatic kneeling, no prepared speech, just the simple offering of his heart in his outstretched palm. "I'm thinking I don't want to count the kilometers between us anymore," he said. "I'm thinking that whatever cosmic accident brought you back into my life, I don't want to question it. I'm just grateful." Nisha stared at the box, then at him, her scientist's mind visibly processing variables and outcomes. "We've only been together 6 months, she said. "Practical even now." "No," he corrected gently. "We've known each other nearly all our lives. We just took a detour." When she finally opened the box, she laughed, not the reaction most men hope for when proposing. Inside was not a diamond ring, but a tiny silver pendant shaped like a binary star system. "Open it," he urged. The pendant was a locket. Inside, he had placed a photo of them as children, sitting on the branch of their neighborhood mango tree, gap-toothed and carefree. "The ring is separate," he explained. "I thought you might want to choose it together, but this is the promise I'm making, to honor where we came from and where we're going." She closed her fingers around the locket, her scientific certainty, momentarily overcome by something more elemental, faith perhaps, or love. "Yes," she said simply, the word containing multitudes. The weight of waiting. 3 months before their wedding, Nisha sat across from her oldest friend Priyanka at a cafe near the university, absently stirring her masala chai. The Mumbai monsoon pattered against the windows, creating a cocoon of intimate sound around their conversation. "You're overthinking this," Priyanka said, reaching across to still Nisha's restless hand. "Farid adores you. Whatever you're worried about telling him, it can't be that bad." Nisha's smile was tight. "It's not bad. It's just personal. And in today's world, it might seem strange." At 33, Nisha had kept a part of herself carefully guarded, not out of shame, but out of deliberate choice. While her peers had explored relationships throughout university and beyond, she had immersed herself in work, in discovery, in understanding the cosmos. Intimacy had always felt secondary to the pursuit of knowledge, and physical relationships seemed to demand an emotional vulnerability she wasn't prepared to offer. "You know how I've always been," she said quietly. "I needed to be certain. About everything." Priyanka nodded. They had been roommates during their undergraduate years, and Priyanka had witnessed Nisha's single-minded focus firsthand. "But you're certain about Fareed?" "More certain than I've been about anything," Nisha admitted. "That's what scares me." Meanwhile, in Delhi, Fareed was having a similar conversation with Vikram as they reviewed blueprints for a new commercial. "Complex. Marriage is a big step," Vikram observed, eyes still on the drawings. "Especially for someone who swore he'd never settle down." Fareed looked up, defensive. "I never swore that." "No. What about that speech you gave at my wedding? Something about architecture being your only true love." "I was drunk. And an idiot." Vikram laughed, but then his expression grew serious. "You're happy, though? This is what you want?" The question unsettled Fareed more than it should have. Of course he was happy. Of course Nisha was what he wanted. But beneath his certainty lay a current of anxiety, not about his feelings, but about his adequacy. Nisha was brilliant, accomplished, respected in her field. What if he couldn't match her intellectually? What if the connection they'd rebuilt couldn't sustain the daily reality of marriage? "I'm terrified," he admitted. Not of marrying her, but of disappointing her. As the wedding approached, their individual anxieties created a subtle tension neither fully acknowledged. During weekend visits, they both seemed slightly distracted, Nisha rehearsing conversations in her head that never made it to her lips, Fareed overcompensating with elaborate plans and attentiveness. 2 weeks before the ceremony, they met in Jaipur, neutral territory halfway between their cities, for final wedding preparations. The pink city surrounded them with its romantic architecture as they sampled catering options and confirmed decorations. That evening, they walked through the illuminated courtyard of their venue, a restored haveli with walls the color of sunset. "It's perfect," Nisha said, but her voice lacked conviction. Fareed stopped walking. "What's wrong? If you don't like it, we can find somewhere else." "No, it's not that, it's a..." She trailed off, looking away. "It's what?" "Nothing. Just pre-wedding nerves." He reached for her hand, twining his fingers through hers. "I have them too, you know." She looked surprised. "You do, but you seem so sure." "I am sure. About us. That doesn't mean I'm not afraid of other things." "Like what?" His laugh was self-deprecating. "Like not being smart enough for you. Like boring you after a few years. Like not knowing how to be a good husband." The confession hung between them, unexpectedly vulnerable. Nisha felt her own secret pressing against her chest, demanding release. But the moment passed as a wedding planner approached them with questions about seating arrangements, and the conversation shifted back to practicalities. That night, in separate hotel rooms, a concession to Nisha's traditional father, they both lay awake. Fareed stared at the ceiling, wondering if he should have said more, revealed more of his insecurities. Nisha clutched her phone, composing and deleting messages, to him, trying to find words for what she needed to say. The wedding was now 13 days away. The weight of their unspoken fears grew heavier by the hour, threatening to overshadow the joy they had found in each other. Yet neither could quite bridge the gap between thought and speech, between intention and action. In the morning, they would smile and continue planning, pretending the previous night's almost conversation hadn't happened. But the questions would remain, orbiting their relationship like satellites, present but just beyond reach. Revelations. The wedding celebrations passed in a kaleidoscope of colors, music, and embraces from relatives Fareed barely remembered and colleagues Nisha rarely saw outside of academic conferences. Their ceremony, a blend of traditions they'd chosen together, concluded as dusk painted the Jaipur sky in hues of amber and rose. Now, finally alone in their hotel suite, the reality of their new status settled around them like fine dust after a celebration. Fareed loosened his embroidered Sherwani collar, watching Nisha as she carefully removed the dozens of pins holding her elaborate hairstyle in place. The weight of the day, of the weeks of planning and years of knowing each other, created a strange new tension between them. "Would you like some tea?" he asked, gesturing toward the room service menu. Or something stronger. Nisha's smile was appreciative but strained. Tea would be nice, thank you. While they waited for the tea to arrive, they moved around each other in a careful dance of politeness. Nisha disappearing into the bathroom with a small bag, Farid pretending to be engrossed in arranging their wedding gifts on a side table. When she emerged wearing a simple silk nightdress and robe, he tried not to stare, suddenly shy despite their months together. The tea arrived, providing blessed occupation for their hands and a momentary reprieve from the unspoken current running between them. They sat on the small balcony overlooking the illuminated gardens of the hotel, the distant sounds of another wedding's music floating up from below. "Are you happy?" Farid asked suddenly, the question escaping before he could analyze it. Nisha looked up surprised. "Of course, aren't you?" "Incredibly. But also..." He hesitated, searching for words. "Terrified." Her posture softened slightly. "Me too." "Really? The great Professor Bajwa afraid of something?" She laughed, the tension crackling. "Believe it or not, I don't have empirical data for everything." The joke created a small opening, a crack in the wall of their mutual anxiety. Farid set down his teacup and moved his chair closer to hers, taking her hand. "Nisha, before tonight goes any further, I need you to know something." He took a deep breath. "I may not be what you expect. I've had relationships before, but they were always... I never felt with anyone else what I feel with you. So if I seem awkward or uncertain, it's because this matters more. You matter more." The confession hung in the night air between them. Nisha's eyes widened slightly, then filled with unexpected tears. "Oh, Farid," she whispered. "I've been so worried about telling you." "Telling me what?" She looked down at their joined hands, then back at his face, gathering courage. "I've never been with anyone before. Not in that way." The words took a moment to register fully. "You mean..." "I mean, I chose to wait. Not for religious reasons or family pressure. It was my decision to wait until I found someone I trusted completely. Someone who saw me, really saw me, for who I am." Farid's expression shifted from surprise to understanding. "And you were afraid to tell me this? Why?" "Because it's unusual at my age. Because I thought you might find it strange or think there was something wrong with me, or worry that I wouldn't know how to..." She trailed off, embarrassed. "Nisha," he said gently, "nothing about you could disappoint me. Don't you understand what you've just told me? It's not a flaw. It's a gift. That you would choose me. Trust me with this." His voice caught. "I only hope I'm worthy of it." The revelation transformed the space between them from tension to tenderness. Farid moved to sit beside her on the small love seat, drawing her close. "We have no timeline," he murmured against her hair. "No expectations to meet except our own. Tonight can be whatever we want it to be." "What do you want it to be?" she asked softly. "A beginning," he answered. "Just a beginning." They stayed on the balcony for hours, talking with a new honesty about their fears and hopes. Nisha confessed how her academic ambitions had always taken precedence, how emotional vulnerability had seemed too risky. Farid revealed his own insecurities, that his success masked a persistent fear of inadequacy, that loving her meant risking a depth of feeling he'd always avoided. When they finally moved inside, it was with a different kind of anticipation. Not the nervous energy of obligation, but the gentle pull of connection. They lay together on the bed, still talking, sometimes laughing, occasionally falling into comfortable silence. His fingers traced the contours of her face as if memorizing its topography. Her hands explored the landscape of his shoulders with careful curiosity. "We have time," he reminded her when he sensed her tension returning. "All the time we need." In that reassurance, Nisha found an unexpected freedom. She had carried her choice as a secret for so long that its revelation, and his acceptance, felt like shedding a weight she hadn't realized she bore. What happened between them that night was tentative, tender, and entirely their own. A slow discovery guided by trust rather than expectation. And in the quiet after, watching moonlight pattern the sheets, Farid understood that this night marked not just a physical threshold crossed, but a deeper understanding achieved. They had seen each other truly, vulnerabilities and all, and chosen to move forward together, step by careful step. Beyond first light morning filtered through the gauzy curtains of their hotel suite, casting patterns across the bed where Nisha lay, watching Farid sleep. His features, relaxed in slumber, reminded her of the boy she had once known. The same slight furrow between his brows, the same habit of tucking one hand beneath his pillow. Yet this was undeniably a man beside her now, one with whom she had shared a night of gentle discoveries and tentative passion. She reached out to trace the outline of his shoulder, marveling at the simple intimacy of the gesture. Farid stirred, his eyes opening slowly to find her studying him. "How long have you been watching me?" he murmured, voice thick with sleep. "Long enough to confirm you still snore a little." He groaned, burying his face in the pillow. "I do not. The empirical evidence suggests otherwise." She smiled, resting her chin on his shoulder. Very quietly, though, like a cat purring. He turned to face her, the previous night's vulnerability still visible in his eyes. "Any regrets?" he asked, softly. Nisha considered the question seriously, as she did all questions. "None," she finally said, "though I may need more data points for a conclusive analysis." His laughter broke the last thread of tension between them, and they spent the morning in a cocoon of newness, ordering room service, sharing the shower, discovering the particular delight of having nowhere to be and nothing to do but learn each other. Their honeymoon, 2 weeks split between the mountains of Himachal Pradesh and the beaches of Goa, continued this unhurried exploration. Days were spent hiking forest trails or walking along shorelines. Evenings brought new conversations and deepening physical intimacy. Nisha found herself gradually shedding the careful self-control that had defined her adult life, while Farid discovered that vulnerability required more courage than he had ever needed in business. "I used to think love was just biochemistry," Nisha admitted one evening as they sat on their private balcony, watching the Arabian Sea turn silver under moonlight. Dopamine and oxytocin creating an illusion of connection. Farid considered this. "And now? Now I think science explains the mechanism but not the meaning." She turned to him, her expression earnest. "The universe operates according to precise laws, but that doesn't make a supernova any less magnificent." Reality, however, waited beyond their honeymoon bubble. Their return brought practical questions they had previously avoided: where to live, how to manage their careers, whether to start a family. Farid's architectural firm was established in Delhi. Nisha's research and teaching position anchored her to Mumbai. 6 months after their wedding, they sat in Farid's apartment surrounded by real estate listings and job opportunities, trying to plot their future on paper as meticulously as Nisha mapped stars. "The university in Delhi has offered me a permanent position," she said, pushing a letter across the coffee table. "The observatory isn't as advanced as Mumbai's, but they're planning upgrades." Farid studied the offer. "Would you be happy there? Truly?" "I'd be with you." "That's not what I asked." Nisha sighed, leaning back against the sofa. "I'd miss some research opportunities. But there's interesting work happening in Delhi too, different collaborations possible." Farid was quiet for a long moment. "What if we didn't choose?" "What do you mean?" "What if we kept both places for now? I could open a branch office in Mumbai, split my time. You could continue your research there and develop the program in Delhi gradually. It wasn't a perfect solution. It would mean time apart, complicated scheduling, financial strain, but it acknowledged something important, that their marriage shouldn't require either of them to diminish themselves. The arrangement evolved over the next year, sometimes awkwardly, often exhaustingly, but ultimately successfully. They maintained apartments in both cities, establishing rhythms of togetherness and separation that somehow strengthened rather than weakened their bond. Video calls connected them on nights apart. Weekends together became precious interludes of concentrated attention. On their first anniversary, they returned to Jaipur, to the same hotel where they had spent their wedding night. The familiar balcony welcomed them, though they were different. Now, more certain of each other, more honest about their needs, more practiced in the art of compromise. "Do you remember how nervous we were?" Nisha asked, curled against him on the love seat. "All those things we couldn't say." Farid nodded, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. "I was so afraid of disappointing you, and I was terrified you'd think less of me." As if that were possible. Their laughter mingled in the night air, comfortable now, where it had once been strained. Below them, another wedding reception was underway, another couple beginning their journey. "What advice would you give them?" Farid wondered aloud, nodding toward the celebration. Nisha considered. That intimacy isn't just physical, that it's found in all the small revelations we make to each other day by day. "And that marriage isn't the destination," Farid added. "It's just the beginning of the real journey." Later that night, tangled, together in familiar comfort, Nisha thought about the astronomical concept of first light, that moment when a new telescope captures its initial images of the cosmos, proving its function, but only hinting at discoveries to come. Their wedding night had been such a moment, important not for its perfection but for its promise. "What are you thinking about?" Farid murmured against her hair, sensing her wakefulness. "First light," she answered. "And second light, and third, and all the observations that follow." He didn't ask for an explanation, didn't need one. Instead, he simply held her closer, understanding now that this was the true gift they had given each other, not just physical intimacy or emotional vulnerability, but the patient dedication to keep seeing each other anew day after day, year after year. Outside their window, stars wheeled across the sky in ancient patterns, following laws that Nisha could calculate with precision. Yet within their embrace existed something equally real but infinitely less predictable. The complex gravity of two lives deliberately orbiting each other, not by cosmic accident, but by daily choice. And in that choice, renewed each morning, with eyes wide open, they had found a truth both simpler and more profound than either had expected. That love measured in light years begins with the willingness to cross the small, infinite distance between two human hearts.